Hi there, and welcome back to the Government Transformation Show, the podcast for public sector changemakers. I'm Dami, and in today's episode, I sit down with Charles Damerell, Senior Director of UK and Ireland at SolarWinds, who joined us at the recent Government Transformation Summit. SolarWinds is a leading provider of powerful and affordable IT management software. Charles is a specialist in sales and sales leadership in the technology sector. He's worked internationally for more than 20 years and has successfully implemented a range of fast start, sustainable go-to-market strategies that resulted in accelerated company growth. At SolarWinds, Charles leads their largest revenue producing unit outside of North America, focused on the overall sales strategy and execution. Today, Charles and I take a quick look at performance. We discuss how government organizations can monitor, measure, and improve the performance of their service delivery, the aspects you need to consider when assessing success, and how to build secure by design services. Let's jump in now. Welcome back to the Government Transformation Show. Today, I'm joined by Charles Damerell, Senior Director UKI at SolarWinds, who joined us at the recent Government Transformation Summit. SolarWinds hosts a discussion table on performance, and that's what we'll be discussing in this episode too. But before we dig into this, Charles, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Dami. Really nice to connect with you again. So yeah, look, my name is Charles Damerell. I run our UK and Irish business for SolarWinds. SolarWinds are a large enterprise software vendor based in Austin, in Texas, in the US. And we have an extensive global operation with some over 300,000 customers, 11,000 of them in the UK. So yeah, keeps me busy.
Wow, it sounds very busy, and it sounds like a very international type of business.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's dig into my kind of quick fire questions. So what is your favorite piece of tech and why?
Yeah, again, I'm probably for your listeners not going to come up with those really outstanding, interesting bits. I mean, to be honest, my favorite piece of tech is my iPhone, and I'm on 13. I'm getting ready to upgrade to the next one, but really my iPhone is my absolute go-to, on me all the time piece of tech.
Can I ask you why iPhone as opposed to Android? Because I know there's a big debate obviously between Apple versus Android.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've been, an Apple user, so my laptop is also a MacBook Pro, but I actually was global vice president for a large antivirus software company, and this was several years ago. And at the time, Apple was a very secure device to use from a computing perspective. And because I was traveling a lot and we were doing quite a lot of stuff around antivirus and cyber protection, Apple was actually our preferred go-to platform. So on the back of that, you kind of get used to, the particular operating system. And then once you have a MacBook Pro and you've got the phone, I also have an iPad. So yeah, I am kind of the Apple geek, really, from that point of view. So the poster child for Apple. Not
well,
really.
I would agree with you.
Oh, really?
I'm the same. Okay. Yeah, I have a MacBook,
cool.
iPhone, I have an Apple Watch.
Yeah,
and
that's the one bit I
Apple TV as well.
haven't got that yet, but I tell you what's, looking at just some of the stuff that's coming on that with some of the health and fitness apps. Yeah, that's probably my Christmas. That's going to be my Christmas list to the wife.
Well, I really do hope you get it. I found it very helpful.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, definitely. And then just another quick question. What is the most efficient way to improve the performance of a government service?
Oh my goodness, that is a huge question. Look, I think again, my answer to that would probably be at a very high level. And it's based on the work that we do within the government sector as an organization. So I think the improvements come in, first of all, recognizing that there's an existing infrastructure, so technical debt, if you want to call it that, and not necessarily thinking about how you forklift and chuck it out and put some new stuff in, because that's not always possible. It's about a journey, a process, and adding to what you have and seeing if you can create some cost-effective incremental steps to that. So I think that's the first thing. And then I guess the really important bit too is recognizing that there's a whole bunch of people, human beings, all doing different things, different departments, different processes, etc., and how they interact with that IT platform, and how do we support them in getting the best out of their jobs with both existing and new. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question really well, but I think given the focus that we're getting at the moment through news and one thing and another about cost savings within government, I hope they don't get too carried away, because at the end of the day, you still need to sort of step in and keep the operation going. But how do you adjust and tweak as opposed to chop away some of that functionality? I think that's always the biggest challenge.
Of course, that's definitely something we're probably going to dig into a little bit more in this episode. And then lastly, could you tell us something interesting about your early career that would surprise our audience?
I don't remember you and I talking about any preparation for this. So again, this is like one of those out of the blue questions, right?
Yes.
Something interesting. Well, look, I tell you what, I actually grew up in Southern Africa. So I grew up in Zimbabwe. And I suppose, that was an amazing upbringing. I grew up on a farm, and so I have a real passion and a love for the outdoors because of that. Obviously, a lot warmer. The sun shines a lot more, down in the southern hemisphere than it does here. But I really love getting outdoors, and I have a German Shepherd that I really love walking, and often we'll head out on the weekend for sort of a good couple of hours walks into the countryside. So yeah, that's probably it. Bit boring, but
Not at all. And we all love a good walk, especially when the views are amazing. So I can completely relate.
Absolutely. But I need to get my Apple Watch so I can get the steps in, right, and monitor that. Exactly.
Yeah, that would be good. Then you can kind of track how effective that workout was as well.
There you go. As long as it doesn't clock the fact that I stop off at the pub on a Sunday.
Unfortunately, it will tell on you.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah. It does. I think it has GPS tracking, so you can kind of see exactly where you walk as well. It has like a little bit of a map tracking situation. But let's move on quickly to the topic at hand.
Sure.
So you joined us at the Government Transformation Summit to host a discussion on performance. The talking points included measuring performance when public services are complicated, scaling up delivery, and balancing task and project completion metrics against user assessments. Why is improving the performance of service delivery important to SolarWinds?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because we chose performance really as quite a broad brush, macro subject matter. But to be fair, the reason I chose that was very much around two things. One, SolarWinds, December the 12th, 2020. So we were effectively breached. We had a huge cyber breach. And we actually took the decision, and again, it's just what we did. I'm not sort of saying that others have done the wrong thing, but we took the decision to go public with that breach. And we did that on the Monday. The 12th was a Saturday. On the Monday, we went public with that. And the reason we went public with it was very much around, first of all, we recognized that we had done the very best we could. We were spending in excess of 120% on average with regards to our cybersecurity above the rest of enterprise organizations, and yet we were still breached. And so we really wanted to sort of, first of all, take our customers along with us as we investigated and tried to find out what actually happened. And then more importantly, we knew then we would have to make some changes. That from a performance perspective, a breach like that can be massively debilitating. And to be fair, had we not done what we did, it's quite possible we might have gone out of business. Who knows, right? But we didn't, and we've come out of it so much stronger. We're 18 months on now from the breach, and so what I landed up doing, at the tables, talking about this whole idea of performance was, first of all, what happens when you have that massive intervention, something really dramatic that can stop the business in its tracks, which is kind of what we had. So what did we do with that? And then talked through the various participants that came to the table about what we faced and how we addressed that. And we kind of compared and contrast with what some of their challenges were. So I remember the MOJ, Cabinet Office, etc. So there were a lot of folks that certainly attended your event. In addition to that, the other piece around performance for us was around, okay, so we get this event, and you could say, right, so you're dealing with that, you're addressing it, you're building out, rectifying, improving. But in addition to that, we're also a company that operates competitively. I mean, we have competition. And when you have a sort of an event like that, it can knock you back, and the competitors potentially could jump in quite quick, particularly if customers choose not to do business with us. So the other piece of performance is around, okay, so you're busy fixing, improving, but then how can you optimize? Is it possible that you can run almost two parallel distinct paths, one of improvement and analysis, and the second of taking that and leveraging it then for something even better, even greater? And again, we managed to do that. We have springboarded ahead of certainly our competitors and the market, as we've then developed our products and our services on the back of something that was potentially and could have been quite negative, but we were able to move forward with that. And so on the back of that, really there was some great discussion, just getting into how we changed our security posture. A lot of customers are really interested. So given that breach, what have you done, SolarWinds, and what can we do? What can we copy? What can we replicate? And we're really open with that. We absolutely are. We publish a stack of stuff around what we did. And by the way, it's not about always buying SolarWinds to get to that improved security posture. We're quite open with some of the companies that we've worked with to actually get to that point. And then in addition to that, our actual solution has really accelerated to a place where we're offering today this observability, this kind of single pane of glass that looks at a whole host of networking, systems management, database management, could be application management, all sorts of things, but it all comes together and provides then this opportunity to have a very close view and perspective of what is going on. And we offer that at different levels, because the CIO will want to see it one way, a particular DevOps engineer will want to see it a different way. And being able to have those different lenses is kind of where we're at today. So anyway, long story short, that's really, in terms of the performance discussions, that was where the real meat or the juice was, with the various delegates that I spoke with.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that answer. I want to dig in a little bit more about how you were able to maneuver the opportunity of discussing the issues you guys have had with security and how you overcame that, and the transparency between explaining how to do that, even if it involves other companies. But let's move on quickly to your main takes on how government organizations monitor and measure the performance of their service delivery.
Yeah. Again, that is also a big question, but let me maybe pull out some of the highlights from those conversations that I had at our table. I think in the first instance, what we recognize in the UK from a government point of view certainly is that different departments, for one reason or another, have actually entered into a kind of a service arrangement with a large organization. If you look at some of the bigger government departments, that might have been a PFI, a public finance initiative 10, 15 years ago. It might be a recent 3 or 4 year old engagement where I guess the idea is can we take everything that we do and almost give it to someone as a third party that hopefully has all the skills and the knowledge and everything to deliver that service? Makes absolute sense. The challenge with it, and what we're finding a lot of, is that it'll be underpinned by, let's say, a service level agreement, many different types of service level agreement, but a set of expectations around, okay, this is what we need in order to deliver our service effectively. And unfortunately, depending on when that contract was engaged, technology moves on. And what we're finding in conversations that we're having with certain departments, and some of the conversations I actually had at the event, was around, okay, so am I, as the department lead, actually getting true value now from that engagement? And the starting point isn't always about, oh, well, in that case, let's go out for a new bid and let's get a new provider in, because we're talking about quite substantial investments, and the amount of process and IT infrastructure, et cetera, is huge. I think the starting point really with anything around review, transformation, or analysis is, can we take a snapshot? Is there a way of just cutting through it and really focusing on the data and the analysis to then tell us, to inform us, are we actually getting what we need? And again, that's where I think from a SolarWinds point of view, this year especially, what we found, whether we're engaging with the MOD, central government departments, etc., it's the ability to be able to provide that all-encompassing platform to take a look at what's going on right across the board, and from that provide certain levels of detail that, again, different levels within the organization can take a look at and compare and contrast. And from there, then different decisions can be made, whether that's an improvement, refining, whatever it might be. In some cases, some of our customers have actually said, right, you know what, based on this, we would like to refresh, and they can then put out a more effective procurement tendering process to actually find what they need. Did that give you what you were thinking in terms of your question?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. I do want to dig in a little bit more to the monitoring and measuring part, though. So in terms of using different tools, how can government organizations look to kind of incorporate new tools that they maybe haven't been trained on, or there's not something that would work with legacy IT, for example? How can they then kind of use these new things to build an infrastructure that works for their current goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. I think if I pick a couple of examples, so let's use the breach, the SolarWinds breach. So you could argue, we've got enough, we're actually developing our own software. So we have tremendous IT technical skill within the organization. And yet on the back of the breach, we did not just kind of get into that whole groupthink kind of perspective and just batten down the hatches and look at what had happened ourselves. We very quickly went out to the market and we brought in several key expert organizations to really bring, if you like, that fresh, I think what's often referred to as kind of fresh eyes, fresh perspective, no previous history, stepping in and looking across the board at the organization. So I think anything that for us was a real insight. What's interesting though, and what our CISO, Timothy Brown, did, which was, I think, almost an additional benefit. So you bring in this case, CrowdStrike and KPMG to really look at the various macro and micro parts of our business. There's then some outputs that come from those organizations. And what's key is, how do we ensure that we're translating those outputs into a language and a set of actions and deliverables that not only we can use, but our customers can also use. And what Tim did was he brought two individuals into the business, really as sort of subject matter experts. The one gentleman that we brought in was Christopher Krebs. Chris was actually director of NISA in the United States, so looking after all of the security, basically the NCSC equivalent in the US. And Chris came in, and his job was to translate what these two organizations were giving us into something that the public sector, our public sector customer base, could really relate to and understand. And then the other individual from a commercial point of view was a gentleman called Alex Stamos. And Alex had just come out of Facebook and was CISO at Facebook. And again, his role was very much to help guide us and explain and ensure that we were, for our commercial customers, again, translating a lot of the findings that we were coming up with. So that's, I think, great. Use external, use fresh perspective, but have a way of translating that into something doable and usable. I think the other key thing that comes then on the back of this is is to actually sort of look at the current technology infrastructure and look at ways of not clearing it all out, but how do we build on top of that? So we've been in business for 23 years. We have a tremendous product range out in the marketplace. And as part of our enhancement and development of our product, we didn't take it, and chuck everything out. We actually took what we had, and what we've then done is built on top of that to provide incremental levels and layers. And what a customer can do today with us is to actually, on a journey, upgrade, cost effectively into something else that they need as their own environment is becoming more complex. And so I think those two things really help to provide flexibility and support, given where an organization will be today.
Amazing. And then in terms of an organization that is looking to start this journey, to lay foundations, to build the high performing services, how can they do this?
Yeah, again, I would, and again, as I think about this, the lens that I'm using is very much from a sort of a monitoring, management, and security perspective as it relates to IT specifically. So I would always, I would suggest for any new organization looking at this is to start at that security area. Look at the current setup. So that might include, for example, the way that a SOC is set up within the organization. In actual fact, we have three separate SOCs in our business as a result of the breach. The way that the red team will look at certain security issues within the organization. Again, we've done certain things with regards to that. We've also gone down this route of internal audit, and we're using some different ideas. And then ultimately, there's a scorecard type of approach that we overlay that gives you that constant feedback in terms of understanding where you're at. So I think that clearly is important. And then once you have that security or secure by design platform, you can then start building on top of that the various kind of building blocks that one is going to need for the particular environment. And if it's monitoring and management, then again, from a SolarWinds perspective, we offer all of our software on a 30-day fully featured evaluation. So many of our customers actually become customers after they've test drived the solution. So again, being able to do that and just being really clear about what it is that a particular solution is going to provide, just clarity around the outputs and how those will be used, not for the technical team, but for the technical team and the business. Linking all of that together, I think is really, really important.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Some very useful
You look really
there.
Impressed.
Absolutely, I am.
Okay,
this
good,
is obviously, it's not my area of expertise, but I feel that
great.
I'm learning a lot as we have this conversation.
Cool.
So on the topic of learning, are there any things that you learned from our civil service community at the summit that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, if there's one thing that I took away from, and certainly something that we're having a look at as we deliver our services to the government organizations in the UK, it's not always about me coming up and presenting and delivering a packaged service solution. What I actually picked up quite a bit was how organizations are looking to try to build capability internally. So having folks actually develop and grow and expand their skills as it relates to the job at hand. And so one of the things that we now have available is this kind of sort of self-serve approach around training and development as it relates to our products and our services, but also into some of the other areas that I've touched on regarding security and aspects like that. So the ability to be able to tap in and actually get all of our research, all of our sort of product knowledge, if you will, and actually learn about it on their own. And in some cases that's free, and in some cases it's pretty low value investment to allow the department to actually develop some of their employees as needed. So I think that would be, again, I think we're in for a really exciting but quite challenging time over the next couple of years. There's a lot going on right now at a macroeconomic perspective, and I think companies need to be super flexible as to how we're offering and how we're supporting our customers, and we're certainly trying to do that for sure.
Great. And then just quickly, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier. So in terms of liaising with external stakeholders that kind of come into the business with knowledge, could you talk about the importance of hiring or selecting or kind of searching for the right talent to kind of help to upskill a team, and how that can really interplay with helping service delivery be a lot more successful?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, and again, your questions are, we could almost have a separate podcast on each one of these topics, right? But I think if there's one thing that I've certainly tried to do as a leader within our business in my geography, in other words, within the UK and the Irish, organization, and I'm lucky enough to have a team in Ireland, and I've also got a team in London, and it's not always about having a big purse. In other words, going after the absolute brilliant, amazingly talented individual, because the really, really outstanding folks are quite expensive. And so, whether it's us or whether it's a government organization, we certainly, we'll spend hopefully a market, equivalent, comparable amount for the right person. But actually, I love looking for, attracting, and then hiring young people that are really coming through a particular area of focus, and then ensuring that we put in place all of the support in terms of the internal development to allow them, if they're motivated and they want to accelerate through the business, to be able to absolutely ensure that we're supporting them on that journey. And by doing that, I can actually hire, not a cheaper, but a more cost-effective employee that comes into the team with the right personal attributes, values, etc., so that we build strong team collaboration, strong team connection within SolarWinds, but then allow plenty of headroom for that person to then grow and expand in whatever direction they want to go, whether that's software development, whether it's commercially, etc., etc. We're lucky enough to have quite a big organization, so people can move, try different things. We've even gone ahead, which is kind of interesting. We actually offer a fully funded sabbatical period now for any employee that's been with us a certain amount of time, to really give people a chance to step away actually and refresh. So I think, again, I think that is, for me, that's been one of our key success principles in hiring the right folks. But also, what happens is when you do the right things, people stay with you. So I don't have high levels of attrition. Folks stay 5, 6, 7 years, even on the sales side with me, which is, again, a little bit unusual when you're hiring entry-level salespeople. They often get itchy feet and will move after 18 months or so. In actual fact, a lot of my team have been with me for 5, 6, 7 years, and they're still here. So yeah, I think that would be a little bit of a nugget that I could share with your listeners.
Amazing, thank you so much. And lastly, is there anything? No worries. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with our civil service community?
No, look, I really appreciate just the opportunity to come along and connect with you anyway. It was the first time we engaged with you guys in terms of the event. In actual fact, I was fortunate enough to actually speak at the event too, which was brilliant. So we'll be back for sure. We got a lot out of it, and I thought the level of seniority and just the different departments that were attending your event was absolutely brilliant. It was, the round tables allowed us to really engage and not talk at people, but actually offer some perspective and then just listen. And it's amazing, when you start looking at those common denominators, whether it's government, commercial, whatever, we're all wrestling with very similar challenges and opportunities, to be fair.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. Nice to connect with you. Cheers now. Bye.
Thanks to Charles for joining me for this episode. Great conversation there around improving performance and capability of service delivery, being secure by design, transparency, and accountability. We're hosting our Government Data Summit on the 20th of October at Church House in Westminster, where we'll be discussing some of the biggest opportunities and challenges around public sector data. Our summits are a fantastic opportunity for senior civil service leaders to meet and workshop solutions to some of the biggest challenges facing public sector organizations today. If you'd like to attend the Government Data Summit, please register using the link under this episode. Join us next time where we'll be sitting with another public sector changemaker. Until then, goodbye.